Hello, welcome to Edinburgh Retro PC podcast number 2. Tonight we've got my good self, Alan, we've got George,
Hello.
and Dave.
Hello.
How we doing, guys?
Doing well.
Yeah,
Excellent.
fine, thanks.
Nice stuff. Nice weekends all round.
Oh yeah.
Wet and windy.
Wet and windy, yeah. You could say that. You could say that. Can't actually wait for the spring and the summer to come in again. And when it
Yes.
does, we complain about the heat. But Excellent. So gaming wise, what you been up to, Dave? You playing retro games or
Yeah,
stuff? What you been up to?
I've been having a Spectrum revival. I dug the old Spectrum Plus 2 out and been playing some old games that I've never played before and a couple that I played back in the day. But just a bit of a Spectrum revival. It's quite good.
Any particular games you quite enjoyed?
I actually played Attic Attack because back in the day I never actually understood what you were supposed to do. So I had a go at that, and I played Lunar Jetman for the first time ever.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's a
And,
hard game, Dave. It's a really hard game.
It's ridiculously hard. I love Jetpack. You can get into that, but Lunar Jetman's just crazy.
Is it the same kind of genre? Up and down drop zone type thing where you got to shoot things. Is it the same kind of play?
Yeah, it's the same kind for Jetpack, but you kind of scroll through left and right. The screen scrolls.
Right.
But there's lots of nasties, and if they hit the deck, they blow up. And
Craters.
and you can't move your truck thing that you can get in. There's a lot more exploration to it, I think, but it's just so frantic.
The craters that it creates are an absolute nightmare in the game, and you find yourself jumping in the car, out the car, in the car, out the car, just to move half a millimetre forward. And eventually you manage to get the car over the crater, and then you drive out 100 yards, and then another crater appears.
Right.
No. But
I think that's one of these games, the urban myth that there is actually a trailer or something. I think, but was it not? I think Crash actually Crash Magazine admitted that it was actually somebody had doctored a picture or something.
They just made up the screen, But
yeah. Well, you're going to tell us you found it, aren't you?
No, I couldn't get off the top screen, so I've not got much.
What was the other Ultimate game that was really tough? The one where you build a ship, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one where you start off with a small ship and you start collecting parts for it. I'm trying to remember the name of the Ultimate game.
You're not Jetpack, also. No.
No, it was. I think it was after Jetpack. It was on the Ultimate Range, and you probably obviously I don't think you guys have played it. We'll have a wee look online to see if we can find it.
I can't even
think.
No.
But it's quite. If you've never played it, it's quite good. It's not as hard as the one that Dave's been playing.
Yeah.
But you know,
is it one of the Spectrum ones?
It's a Spectrum one. It's not as hard as Lunar Jetman.
It's Trans Am, is it? No.
No.
Oh, is that? No. I've seen the box for that game. Never actually played it.
So you had Saberwolf, Lunar Jetman. What on earth was it called? I'll find it if you guys keep talking. I'll find it in a second. It's quite a good one.
Because obviously they had like Jetpack, and then you had Lunar Jetman, and then they obviously seemed to kind of go to the old Attic Attack, and then they kind of milked that to death with your Nightshade and whatever it was, Gunfight, that kind of thing. Yeah.
The whole isometric era. It was pretty good. I like Gunfight. I used to play Gunfight on the Amstrad when you got in the horse, and it was like a wee pantomime horse. It was fantastic.
I think I remember seeing stills of that actually. Yeah.
It was great because it actually sped you up. You kind of ran, so you could run about the place. It was good fun.
The game was called Cyber Run.
Oh, I've seen pictures of that. Yeah.
Have you not heard of it, Dave?
No, I've never played it, but
you basically I think it's better than Lunar Jetman because it's a wee bit easier to play. And basically, you start off with like a small ship, and you collect like rockets, outboard rockets for it so you can maneuver better guns and all that. But it's quite a good game for Ultimate. It's definitely worth playing on Specky.
Worth looking out. Excellent. What about yourself, George? What you been up to games wise?
I've not really had an opportunity to play games this week. I've been formatting and loading games on Amiga 600 SD card. for somebody in the rental club. I had on my Amiga 1200, I had a 2 gig CF card, but I wanted to put more games and more Amiga programs on it, but I was kind of limited to space. So I bought an 8 gigabyte CF card at Maplin last weekend. Now on the Amiga, you're limited to what size of hard drive you can put in it. Apparently, it's 4 gig is the maximum.
Yeah, 4 gig, aye.
So what you can do is, what I sussed out you can do is you can buy an 8 gig CF card and partition it, Dave.
All right, nice.
So I've partitioned it into 2 blocks of 4 gig. So the first 4 gig is the apps and the workbench, and the next 4 gig is for all the Amiga games.
Nice.
And now I've got, so what I've sussed out, what I'm able to do now as well, is to save me having to go from scratch and start building the whole Amiga workbench again normally what I do is install 3.1 and then I upgrade it to 3.9, which is the latest kind of workbench you can put on Amiga 1200.
Yeah.
There's a program called WinImage, and what I've sussed out what you can do is you can get your original 2 gig card and you can image it. Right. And then you can put that image on another CF card.
Oh, nice.
So basically what I could do now if I wanted, I could sell 8 gig CF cards to folk that wanted them for the Amiga and
Can
put an image on them.
Pre-installed sort of thing.
Pre-install an image, or like deploying an image on a PC. So it saves you a massive amount of time. And I've been using a lot of the Amiga emulator WinUE.
Yeah.
I'm using that. I've got my identical mirrored Amiga 1200 on that image, and I can transfer games and that from that as well onto the CF card.
Nice. So I was going to say you can use WinUE to build a hard drive image.
I've got them, Dave. If you want them, I've got about 4 of them.
All right.
And they're called HDF files. I've got one that's about 3,000 Amiga games, and it's on a games.hdf file. I've got one that's Workbench 3.9. It's another HDF file, and you can basically on your PC you can start up the Win emulator, and then you can just add these in, and then straight away it'll boot up into OS 3.9, the Amiga 1200 with all the games on it.
Nice.
If you want, just tell me if you want. I can bring it to the next Retro Club meeting.
Sounds good.
Pretty
cool.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Yep.
Smashing. Yep. Games-wise for myself, wasn't playing very much last week. But last night I had a bit of a night to myself. My wife was working late, and my wee girl, she was away through in her granny's in Glasgow. So what did I do? I put on the one console that I tend to think is dated badly. Is the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, but I actually dug it out last night. And what was I playing? I was playing Die Hard. I don't know if anyone remembers seeing that. And you know what? I mean, the graphics are, they're pretty dire. I mean, it's like very first generation polygons. They look pretty bad, but the actual game itself is still really, really good. You know what I mean? The playability still comes over. Sorry?
Is it like what type of gameplay is it? Is it like side-up shooter?
It's actually it was a very good. I mean, it was one of the first PlayStation games that I bought. Well, I bought from the Barras or Ingleson Market. I think it was the Barras. Actually, I bought that one for about a $5 or something. And you start off, it's kind of like your sort of Tomb Raider, third person type thing. You're in a car park shooting baddies, and then you've got a bomb, etc., whatever it is, and you go through that. And then there's also a level where it's like Virtua Cop, but you use the joystick, and it's actually very, very playable. But the whole atmosphere, I mean, I think the atmosphere at that level where you got the Virtua Cop, but there's a bit you go outside and it's like snowing. And I mean, for, considering how old, how sort of, what's the word for it, how dated the hardware was kind of thing, prehistoric looking, it was actually, it created a really good feel for the game kind of thing. So if you get a chance to play it, you should play it.
I'm looking at screenshots on Google now, and it shows you loads of. It looks. I can see the bit you're on about where it's like a first-person shooter.
Yeah.
It does look pretty cool for an old PlayStation 1. It's pretty cool. What I've been doing. Remember, I don't know if I brought it wrong. I picked up an old PlayStation 2 Slim at a recycling centre, and the case was wrecked on it. The thing worked, but the case was wrecked. It almost looked like somebody had sat a soldering iron on the top of the case on it. It was all melted, Dave. So what I done is I managed to pick up a whole PlayStation 2 Slim case off of eBay, and this case is absolutely immaculate. It's like brand new. So I spent Saturday morning replacing the case on it. So I've got a mint PlayStation Slim. So it I'll bring it along. I think you've got one, Al. You've got a grey one.
I've not got a PlayStation Slim. I have got
Right.
what was a PlayStation original. But the great thing is it's the model that you can have the hard drive inside. You can put using the network adapter thing that you could get for the PlayStation 2. You plug a normal IDE hard drive in it. So I've got like an 80 gig hard disk in it with about 50 or 40 games in it. So that's really cool.
And how does the games load? Are they on the arcade menu system?
Yeah, it's a bit of a bugger to actually get up and running. I mean, I bought it. It wasn't off Gumtree. I bought it off. I think it was an advert in the paper or some damn thing, and it was pre-configured and that kind of thing. It's not the most user-friendly of systems, but yeah, it's I've got the PlayStation 2, and it's still a good machine.
And what cable are you using for it? You guys got an AV?
I've got it's component. Cable,
I didn't know until recently that you could actually the PlayStation 2 gives you a component HD output on it.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
So I bought a cable about 2 weeks ago off of eBay for it. Got it wired up, and there's a massive difference because folk were complaining that if you've got a PlayStation 3, you can, and the very first models you can play PlayStation 2 games on it. But the problem you've got is if you look in Google, you'll see that on the PlayStation 3 you get massive graphic artifacts on when it plays the PlayStation 2 games, so they look shite.
Yeah.
So there's loads of people on YouTube that have thought, great, I've bought a PlayStation 40 gig model, I think it was, and now we can play on my PlayStation 2 games, but the games look shite.
Apparently it's just under emulation.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Rubbish.
Aye, so you're better buying a PlayStation 2 and just keeping it that way.
Superb. Good stuff. Anyway, listen, just since we were kind of touching on emulation, talking about WinUAE, the first kind of question I wanted to throw out there, what are your thoughts on emulation versus original hardware? What do you think then, guys?
I think for you can never beat the. I think I like a combination of both. I like the real hardware, but multi-card adapters with lots of games on it.
Aye, that's a kind of in between, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I like. I'll always like playing the right hardware because I just love to get my hands dirty and play with the original hardware. But emulation's got its place. I mean, emulation's all right, but if you've not got a lot of money and you've not got a lot of space for a lot of computers, it is another way of doing it. It's handy for things like retro event nights where you want to play different types of machines at once.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, for years I could only do the emulation thing. You know, I didn't have the space or the sort of disposable income to have the computer. But I've slowly managed to build up a wee decent collection of consoles and computers and stuff. I like wherever possible to have the kind of legitimate thing, the original software and that, but that's just because I like instructions and stuff like that. Having said that, I was playing some of the games on the Spectrum last night with a Specky tape on the iPhone.
Yeah, great.
And I do have I've got a 3.5-inch disk drive for my Amstrad 6128 where you can transfer disk images off a PC onto the Amstrad.
Cool.
Which is pretty cool. So, you know, you can just download images and have a go and things like that. But wherever possible, I prefer the real thing. But some of the Spectrum tapes, I've bought the originals, and the tapes are just wonky because they're 30-year-old.
Basically, I think the tapes, the stretch, Dave, and the actual the stuff on them, because it's a ferrous material, am I right? And the stuff actually rots.
Right. Just rubs off.
Yeah. But I'm surprised. I mean, it's weird that I've had Amiga games, right, on the 3.5-inch disc, and they're knackered, they're no load. And I've got old BBC Micro floppy, the 5.25-inch, and they still work.
A lot more stable,
They seem to be a lot more reliable than the Amiga discs.
I think 3.5-inch discs, when they were manufactured, were just dead cheap. Yeah. Exactly, because you think the 5.25s are obviously like cardboard and all that kind of stuff, they're no cardboard, that kind of vinyl thing. But I don't know if the quality of the actual disc and a 3.5-inch floppy was just cheap, which is why you could, even back in the day when they were still used, you could get 10 discs for £2.50 and all that kind of stuff.
I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right there, Dave. I mean, back in the was it the 5.5-inch disc, whatever it was only the real nerds that actually even used them type thing. 99% of people used tapes, whereas when the 16-bit machines came along, it was all discs. So everybody in our auntie were buying discs. So they probably they were getting pumped out a lot cheaper, kind of thing. Probably the quality was quite poor as well.
Yep.
Yeah. But my thoughts on emulation. I mean, I slowly kind of upgraded, if that's the right word, upgraded from a Commodore 64 kind of through the 16-bit. Then I eventually got a PC. And then, I mean, this was before the days of the internet. And I think I remember reading in the back of an Amiga format, one of the discs, it was like Spectrum emulator, a disc, 200 games. I'm like, what the hell was that? And I think I sent off for it. And it was like, oh, this is brilliant. And I mean, it was running at like maybe 40% of the speed. And then at that point, and then I realised that emulation was something, I'd never even heard of the word emulate really before until that kind of came out. Then when I eventually got my dial-up modem, the first thing I typed was, Commodore 64, and it was like, there was like WinVice or whatever it was, or I think it was just called Vice for DOS and that kind of thing. Suddenly I realised that there was this whole world emulation, and then there was websites like Dave's Classics came out, and then MAME came out, and this to me it was like getting the keys for a sweetie shop as a kid. I suddenly had access to all these systems I'd never had the chance to own, kind of thing. And there's a front end called GameBase, which I think I've let you see, George. It's basically it's just a front end for each system, and I've got some like 43 systems with all these thousands of games, and it's brilliant, absolutely fantastic. But then when I'm not going to bore you with the details, but basically I got introduced to modern hardware about 4 years ago. I suddenly realised, well, wait a minute, this eBay thing. Well, let's see if there's anybody selling a Commodore 64. Oh, there's one for 30 quid. Oh, BBC, boom, 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 boom. And then, of course, we started up this retro club 2 years ago, and it's just went, woof, and I've suddenly got hundreds of machines. But, I mean, I absolutely... emulation was great. It kept interest going over all these years. But there's something. I mean, I'm sitting in front of my computer at the moment, and I could fire up Attic Attack and use my 360 joypad and play it. It's like, okay, I'll put it off and I'll just check Facebook. Whereas when I go upstairs, I set up my Spectrum, and alright, I'm cheating using the SD card, but I'm actually playing it with a proper joystick, proper hardware, and I'll actually play it. I tend to find that I'll play games more if I'm sitting in front of a big TV with the original hardware rather than an emulator. It's far too easy just to go in and load up Chase HQ and go, right, okay, try something else and just rattle through them, kind of thing. So, but I do agree, for people who don't have either the money or the space, which I have neither, however, it's not stopped me. Emulation is great, and let's be honest with you. I mean, when you think about it, and I mean, in 20 years' time, I mean, nobody ever imagined that in 30 years from when the Spectrum came out, that there'd be people still playing it like us. The fact that some of these machines are still going is incredible, but that kind of hardware, capacitors and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to last forever. So probably in 50 years' time, you'll only get a Spectrum in a museum, and, emulation, it's a fantastic, it's an archive of machines that are, that people... never got to experience, kind of thing. So it's good from that point of view. But yeah, if money and space is tight, emulation's fantastic. But if you can afford the real hardware, I would always say go for it.
I think it's good if you kind of get your hands on a system, but you want to see what the games are like. As well.
Aye, definitely.
That I'm going to lead on to another topic to do with emulation, and Alan touched on buying stuff on eBay, and I want to kind of open up to impulse buying on retro stuff. Has there ever been a piece of retro hardware you bought, Dave, where you've thought, shit, I wish I hadn't bought that. It's just, I wanted it, but I'm never going to use it?
Yes. There's been a few impulse buys, but the one thing that I did buy and then eventually sell on was I bought an Atari Jaguar. Because I remember back in the day in Electronics Boutique, before it was Game, going in and having a look, and next to I was looking at Amiga games, and they had 3DO games, and they had Atari Jaguar and all that kind of stuff, all the sort of 64-bit exciting stuff. And I always remember being fascinated by the Jaguar, and I always thought, I'd like to own one of them, but they were ludicrously expensive at the time. So anyway, one came up on eBay, and it was 35 quid or something. It was a bit of a bargain, and I bought it, and it came with a couple of games, and I bought a few games for it, and I think I played it twice, and sat and gathered dust. And it was all right, there was nothing really wrong with it. It just didn't float my boat. So I ended up selling that on. But there's been a few things that you kind of buy and you think, what did I buy that for?
I've got something very similar. I bought it. It was outrageously expensive. Played it a couple of times, and it's now gathering dust. It's called a PlayStation 4.
If you wait long enough, it will be retro.
No, I mean, I must admit, I can't say I'm one of these. Maybe it's, I don't know. I'm one of these guys. I buy something. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but I tend to have if I want something, I'll go and buy it. As long as I can afford it. If it's something up to maybe 40 quid. I'll go and, even if I've paid these note for another 2 weeks, I'll put it on my credit card and I'll pay the 40 quid off next month, whatever it is. When it gets to £100 or over, it's not the first time I've bought something, and I mean, I get buyer's remorse very, very easily, and then I've got to then think to myself, wait a minute, I work hard, I don't go to the pub, I don't spend loads of money, I don't go to football, I don't, this is my thing. I mean, my what do you call it? Computer games is my hobby. It doesn't. Well, I was going to say it doesn't cost me a lot of money. It probably has last year. I spent some silly money, but in the main, once you've bought it, invariably it doesn't really cost you anything to actually run it, kind of thing.
Yep.
But I mean, I suppose the one thing that I did buy, and I'm like, fuck, was what do you call it? The Pandora, the little handheld, absolutely brilliant little thing. I was at Ian at our club. He brought his along, and I thought, that looks great. And then I happened to watch a guy called Ashens. He reviewed his, and I thought, that is what I've been looking for all my life. A perfect handheld emulator. It will emulate Amiga, PlayStation, and I thought, and then it was one morning. I think my wife was away to work. That's when you always make the purchases when your better half's away to work. And but I was lying. I woke up and I thought, picked up the smartphone. I thought, see what time it is. I'll check Facebook. I'll just have a wee look on eBay, and I'm still in my bed, lying in my bed, and I get eBay Pandora, and there's one here it was like opening bid £120.
Ouch!
And I thought, I offered the guy £180, and he came back, yeah, and I'm like, bang, PayPal, bang, purchase confirmed. I'm like,
it's so easy though, isn't it?
And I mean, I really did. As soon as I bought it, I'm like, I felt sick.
Aye.
I mean, I literally felt sick. However, it's one of my most used machines. I mean, I've never bought anything gaming related wise that I've regretted. Yeah, I get the instant buyer's remorse. Oh, that's stupid. Why did I buy that type of thing? But there's nothing really I've bought that I would say that's been a complete waste of money. You know what I mean?
The problem we've got, Alan, is that some people need a reality check when it comes to selling retro stuff on eBay.
Oh yeah.
They think, it's it's a seller's market. People want these machines because they're rare, and they always put the word rare in the title, and it's no rare. Commodore 64 rare.
Maybe they mean the East Coast kind of rare, where it's that's rare, that's brilliant.
But they say, but it's boxed, right? Okay. And they double the price because it's boxed. It's like, nah.
Nah, maybe not.
Can I just kind of following on from what you're saying there, George? I don't know. You've obviously you've been aware of the whole Flappy Bird thing.
Yeah. I'm watching Gumtree. Actually,
yeah, I was looking for. There's a guy on another forum I frequent, and he's after an iPhone 4 at the moment. So I said to him, I'll have a look in Gumtree, blah blah, and I put an iPhone 4. And there's a guy selling an iPhone 4 for £600 because it's got Flappy Bird installed. You go into eBay and they're selling for £1,000 now. I've not gone in to see if anyone's been stupid enough to actually buy it, but come on, seriously,
it's hilarious. I'm sure I've seen one iPhone 5 £1,000 on Gumtree, Flappy Bird.
but it's got some shit game in it.
Why would you buy that? I've actually played Flappy Bird.
It's
And
mince.
there's nothing more guaranteed to make you snap your new iPhone in half than there is Flappy Bird. It's just ludicrous.
I mean, that is a mentality that folk think.
But
Great.
you know it's
Yeah,
bad
it's
when the developer of the game goes, this is driving folk insane, I'm going to take it off the market. You know it's bad when the developer pulls his own game.
I have to say it's a perfect work time toilet break gaming hit. I've got it on my Android phone. I love it.
If you want to sit in the toilet and flap your bird, that's what you say.
Anyway, cut to the chase. What's your high? More importantly, what's your highest score then, Dave? Have you not played it?
I couldn't get past the first tube. I tried 3 times and I'm like, this is just I'm going to kill something.
Yep.
George.
So, to be honest with you, I've not played it. I've watched YouTube. I've watched YouTube watch folk playing it, and I think.
Have you got it?
I've not got it. No.
I've got a phone here for sale, £500 if you're interested.
Would you accept 1,000? No. I think. I think the guy. The only thing I think's wrong is the developer has missed a trick. Now, was it a free download, Alan?
It's completely free. It's got adverts.
Right. I think he's missed a trick. As far as I'm concerned, he should have charged for it. Once it got popular, he should have started charging for it, and he would have made a fortune off it. And I know. It's just while the hype's there, he should have started to charge for it. 79 pence for it. The guy would have been laughing away at the bank, and he's missed a trick as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know if you've done any of the reading, the sort of background behind it. Apparently, he wrote it. It came out in January, and nobody gave it a second glance because it's such a shit game basically. But what happened was, in the space of about 4 weeks, it just went woof right up to the very, very top. And there's a lot of thinking that he was using bots to kind of put false reviews, and people seem to think that he somehow kind of fudged it to get to the top. And I think that's where a lot of the badness has come out, kind of thing.
Right.
And I mean, there's people saying, he's making £50,000 a day in adverts and that kind of thing. But I don't know. But
so it was adverts on it.
There's adverts. You get when you die, which happens all the time in this game. You get a wee pop-up advert, and then it disappears again, sort of thing. But yeah, I think. Pardon me. I think that's why he's getting so much criticism, because there's a lot of people who seems to think that that he was kind of using the underhand means to kind of push his game up to the top.
Basically, he would have made money out of it then.
Yeah,
if he's put adverts on it. Yeah,
I know. So just obviously, kind of leading on from that, one thing that's in fact, I think did we not touch on it last week? I can't remember. The first podcast was the rare game silly prices. Did we touch on that last week? I can't remember.
No,
I don't think we did. Yeah, you're probably all aware, guys. There's been a couple of very rare NES games. Was it Super Mario or something? I think it was on the NES. I don't know what makes them particularly rare, but there was two sold recently for like £100,000 or something.
I know why their class is really rare. It's basically Nintendo, I think, held a competition in America where there was, and you could join the competition. And I think if you compete in it or you won it or something, you got one of these carts, and you would try and get. It's almost like a high score challenge. And these carts were limited edition, and they were only there for people that were competing in the competition. And even if they lost it, I think they got a copy of the cart. Am I right, Dave? Do you know much about it?
I think so. If what I've heard, that's pretty much it. The kind of the best Super Mario players in the world, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's why they were. I mean. The carts that were on eBay, they weren't in great condition.
No, they were pretty poor condition, eh?
Because I think the winner got a gold cart.
Right.
Everybody else got just a kind of normal grey one,
which
is the ones that kind of pop up for 150 grand or whatever stupid price they're going.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like, I don't know. I just can't get my head around something going for that kind of money. I mean, like, if a rare game like Radiant Silvergun for the Sega Saturn, it goes for like £75. So I could understand a rare cartridge going for maybe £200 or maybe £500, but 60 grand, £60,000. That's outrageous. I think I'd be suffering for buyer's remorse if I bought that.
I think it's because you get guys who are really anal and they want, no matter what, they want the complete collection of Nintendo games.
Seriously, Rich, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, and they think
You're
that's
right.
the only one have they got.
See,
But,
I have a little bit of the completest OCD, because I bought, it's not exactly rare, but the Streets of Rage trilogy on the Mega Drive. I had Streets of Rage 1 and 2, which are, pretty common. Streets of Rage 3, for some reason, seems to be rare, in quotes. And when I bought it, anything over a tenner and I start twitching, I have to really think about that. And at the time, the going price was kind of 35 to 40 quid for Streets of Rage 3. And I was like, I don't know. And I hummed and hawed, and one of them came up for, I think it was 32 quid. And I'd sold some stuff, so I thought, right, I'm going to just take the plunge, and I bought it. And I bought it, and, I'm happy now. The OCD's ticked because I've got Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3. That's all good.
Yeah.
It's since escalated. The average price is kind of 50 to 60 quid for it. And whilst the game is great fun, the music is absolutely abysmal, and you can't turn it off. So you end up spending, if somebody bought it now, they'd spend 60 quid on a great game with the most ear-bleeding, inducing soundtrack you could possibly get. It's just hideous. So
I think it's not a daft thing though, buying these rare games, because they'll only fetch more money. It's an investment.
Yeah.
That kind of thing will just go up, and because someone had the Streets of Rage trilogy, all three of them boxed complete, which mine's are as well. But he was selling the three of them, and it was a buy it now, 199 quid, and it sold. Someone bought them. So
have you ever seen how much it is to buy the complete collection of Ultimate games on cart for the Spectrum?
Well, that would be stupid money, I would imagine.
Yeah, there was one came up on eBay, and it was silly money. It's like this, basically, how they're almost like a RAM cart that plugs into the Sinclair 2 joystick adapter interface. And somebody was selling the complete collection of these. And silly money.
The funny thing is, you're saying silly money, but see when you actually think about it. I mean, you were talking about that Streets of Rage 3, Dave. You paid 32 quid. That probably came out 20 years ago, and it was probably £45. So you've got it for probably about a tenner less. And £45 back then was probably about half a week's wages. So even what you've paid for it, it's still way cheaper than it cost back in the day. You know what I mean?
That's
but you do think of a game as being, a retro game being 30 quid as being, it's staff money. But, it's still a hell of a lot less than you would have paid for it back in the day, sort of thing. But
it's very true, very true.
Yeah. Actually, sorry.
I'm just saying you made me feel better about it. That's
well, I wouldn't say that. I actually saw one for £2 in Gumtree, but... But I mean, I suppose I think you said that, George. I mean, guys that pay silly money for it like that, they must have loads and loads of money. I mean, it's all relative at the end of the day. If you're on $100,000 a year, or you're a millionaire, then and you want the complete collection of something, then you're not going to think twice about paying daft money for something.
And I can imagine they'll lose sleep over not getting the game.
Aye, no, that's right.
But I mean, you got to admire them. They're wanting to achieve the complete collection.
Yeah,
I think like some me and you were like, yeah, I do with like some of the good ones, but I can't afford the complete collection.
No,
the trouble with complete collections. I mean, I've got an Atari 7800, and there wasn't that many games for it, and I've got maybe 30 games at the moment, and I thought, I could maybe look at having a complete collection of Atari 7800 games.
Mm-hmm.
The trouble is, quite a lot of the games are shit. And you just think, I really want to pay 20 quid for a shit game just to have it in my collection.
So, could you, see with the Atari 700, could you put other games into it, like the 2600 games, or just no play on it?
It plays the 2600, It won't play the 5200 stuff, but it'll play the whole 2600 back catalogue.
So, cool. Was it the graphics were better, but the gameplay was worse on it? Was that right, or what was wrong with it?
I think it's equivalent to an Atari 800 XL computer.
Right.
So the graphics were better. Proper, your kind of 8-bit computer graphics.
Yeah.
some of the games are quite nice. They're a lot more colourful and all that kind of stuff. The control pads you get with the 7800 are pretty
shocking,
Aye.
I've got a was it the Atari 7800? Yeah. I've got one of the joysticks, and it's the most unwieldy thing you could ever use. I mean, it's like a big bit to grip on, and it's got a huge big stick, but it's awful. I think actually, Dave. In fact, fun enough, I was actually listening to one of our rival podcasts today. And they were actually talking about the 7800, and apparently the sound, it's the same sound chip as the original Atari, so the sound is crap. I didn't know that actually.
The Pokey chip.
Is it?
I mean, it's not bad, to be honest. I mean, there's some of the games are pretty good, but towards the end of the 2600's life, some of the sound effects that they were managing to pull out it was pretty good. So it's not too bad. I mean, I've heard worse.
Yeah. It's funny. There's one of the chaps on YouTube. He's got his own channel, and one of the things that he was wanting to do was collect every single PAL SNES game. And he must have an unlimited bank account, because he was buying something like 10 a week. And what he was doing is he was actually, it's very professional, his YouTube videos. He had a wee kind of like till register going. Every time he held up a game, it'd go ka-ching, and it would jump up. And I think after like 2 weeks, it was something like £600. You're like, whoa. And then somebody was saying, why do you want to collect every game? And he says, I just want to have them all. And he says, you do realise that you'll be paying like 80 quid for shit games. And then eventually the penny dropped, and he thought, do I really want to spend 80 quid on a game that is awful? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Well, it gets silly because there's a guy on YouTube called Finn Gamer, and he's brilliant. You should check him out if you've not seen him before. He's Finnish, funnily enough. And he actually almost won an award on YouTube for having the sexiest voice in retro.
What was I never tuned in that channel?
The guy has got a great voice. He speaks English, but he's his thing. He's got quite a huge collection, but he has completed. He's got a complete Nintendo 64 collection.
Cool.
And some of that was stupidly expensive because there's a game. I think it's. I don't know if it's Clay Fighter, but there's a game like that. I can't quite remember which one it is. But it was only ever released as a rental cartridge from video shops. And to find one boxed, complete with manual, I mean, the guy Finn Gamer has the box, the manual, the Nintendo, that consumer thing that says, don't play it for too long or you'll have an epileptic fit. Yeah. That document, he has one of those and everything, and the bag for the cartridge. So it's like you would buy it at the shop.
Wow. So
I think he paid, it was something like €1,100 he paid for the box, just the box. But he managed to get the whole complete collection. It's quite impressive.
I think there's a lot of people. There's definitely a difference between being a collector and being a gamer. I put myself firmly in the latter camp. I collect games to play. I couldn't give two monkeys whether there's no instructions, whether the game, the stickers ripped off it, whether there's a box. In fact, if there's a box game going for 20 quid and an unboxed game going for a £5, I know what one I would pick up every time. Now, there's nothing that makes me sadder as a retro gamer when I see these collections on eBay and it's like, starting bid £200,000, and it's these collections of mint hardware that's like 30 years old, PlayStation 1s and Sega Dreamcast and all these games, the complete Dreamcast games, they're all, still wrapped up in their cellophane. And I've got to think to myself, I don't know. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I like picking up games off my shelf and looking at the box, but I then like to put it into the machine and actually play the damn thing. I just don't get the collecting, and not because obviously that guy's bought that box for whatever it was you said, €1,200. And he's not going to touch it. He's going to put it on a shelf, and it's not going to be touched.
I mean, it would be like buying an Aston Martin and never driving it, I suppose. It's that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I know.
So I think I fall into the collector category then, with the stuff that I get, with the computers that I've bought. But it's all the ones that I've had as a kid, that I couldn't afford as a kid. That I wanted to see them working, and I quite like just repairing them, dabbling them, upgrading them. That kind of stuff interests me more than the gaming. Or I do like gaming on them, but it's a kind of side event compared to what I like doing.
Aye.
You're a tinkerer.
Yes.
I think he's just a think, but anyway. Listen, guys, we don't want to let this drag on too long. What I was thinking, just we'll throw in one last kind of topic of conversation, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Just totally kind of curveball this one. Games magazine. Obviously, now we've got games magazines are almost, they don't have a place anymore. We've got the internet. You've got your GameSpot. You've got your Eurogamer. All these things. You want to read a review of a game. You go online, you type it in, and you just say, that looks good. Or you talk to guys like yourself, you talk to people on Skype, Facebook, retro clubs, that kind of thing. But, you go back to 1985, you didn't, apart from maybe bumping into your pal and he said, that game's brilliant, that game's shite, whatever it was, the only thing you had to go by was either looking at, before magazines came out, you picked up the cassette tape off the boot's shelf, you looked at it, and if you're unfortunate enough to pick up a Codemasters game, David Darling, who wrote the game, would say, absolutely brilliant. You go, fucking hell, I better buy it then, because he says it's brilliant, you know what I mean? And 9 times out of 10, you'd get it home, you load it up, and then your heart would just sink. You go, this is shit. That's another $6.99 I'll never get back again. But then in 1985, everything changed for me when I wandered into John Menzies, and I picked up a magazine called Zap 64, and it was about for the Commodore 64. And I remember taking it home. I think it was 95 pence actually. Taking it home, and this was written in a kind of style of a kind of like a school fanzine. It was written by gamers for gamers. These guys, they were the same age as me. They were so enthusiastic, and there was basically three reviewers. All review the same game, and they'd give a thumbs up type thing, whatever it was. And invariably, there was always one of them you would be able to relate to. You think the games that guy likes is the games that I like, and basically that became my Bible. Every month, I would rush up to John Menzies, pick up Zap 64, look to see what the best games were, and then I'd have to think, right, I'll get that one next month and that one the month after, and that became my Bible for games. So yeah, for me, I mean, Zap 64, I used to get computer and video games before Zap 64 came out, but that was more kind of general. It was a kind of multi-format magazine, but Zap 64 changed the magazines for me. Yeah. What about yourself, George? What was magazines that you buy? Did you buy them?
I was into Ure Sinclair and Crash, because I was a Specky fan, more than a 64. Although I'm inclined more for the 64 stuff now as well as the Specky, but I used to love the Crash and Ure Sinclair for the tape magazines, the tape inserts used to get. So I used to get a cover tape on Crash sometimes. I don't know if you got them all the time, but I used to get it on Ure Sinclair, and you'd have trial games, demo games on it.
I think sorry, George, was that not some? If I can remember rightly, I think that was something that came out good number of years later. I think that came out maybe kind of 87, 88. It was almost towards the end of the life, when obviously there was games that had maybe been released 2-3 years before. It would then appear on the compilations. Yeah.
Aye, and that's what I would. That's kind of encouraged me to buy a lot of the kind of computer magazines at the time. Was the fact that you got the cover tapes on them was pretty cool. But I'm a big fan of Crash. I think what's when you used to see them in John Menzies, it was the cover art that was designed on them by Oliver Frey.
Yeah.
I think he did the art covers for both the 64 and the Spectrum Crash.
He did Amtex as well.
Did he? Right.
And it was Newsfield International, I think it was. Not Newsfield International, that's bloody Rupert Murdoch, isn't it? What's it called? It was Newsfield, was it not?
Aye, it's News International. You're thinking
that's right. Aye.
Newsfield was the publishers that did all the kind of retro magazines. It was Roger and
so he'd design a cover for every month for each game that was like almost like the Star Review, wasn't it? Star Review game. Mm-hmm. He would design a cover, art cover for that. So that was quite attractive when you were. Whereas Ure Sinclair would have a boring cover of somebody holding a BBC Micro. Wasn't it just quite the same?
Nah, I mean, when I was a lad, it was I was an Amstrad guy when I was at school, so I used to get Amstrad Action. I got Amtex, but
you got to be Amstrad Action.
I bought Amtex, but there was only like 10 issues of it. But Amstrad Action was fantastic because it was like, it was just the Amstrad equivalent of Crash and all that kind of stuff.
I think they were all written in the same sort of fanboy type thing. You know what I mean?
I do remember though when you were talking about cover tapes. Moving on slightly, I used to love buying the Amiga magazines because you got the cover discs on them.
Yeah.
And I used to buy every Amiga magazine that came out every month. And I remember being in John Menzies, and there was a wee old lady in front of me. I was an apprentice electrician at the time, and I bought all these magazines, in for the monthly hoard. And there was a wee old lady in front of me, and she got served, and she had like a Women's Weekly or something like that, some kind of women's magazine, and a bar of chocolate. And the lassie in front, said, "Oh, that's £1.05 or something." She says, £1.05 for these magazines? God, that's ridiculous. And she was still sorting her bag out while she rang through all my magazines. And I think there was like 7 magazines. She went, "That's £34." We all nearly choked on her chocolate. It was ridiculous. But I used to love it, I used to love buying all these magazines.
Do you not find, especially with the 8-bit machines, that there was a direct relationship between the volume of games in the tape as to how shit the mag was? I mean, as the Commodore got kind of, I think at that point I'd actually moved on to like the 16-bit, but I remember picking up like the Zap 64, and it was like in fact, I'm sure it got ridiculous. It got to the point that someone were putting 2, and even I'm sure like there was even some magazines were putting 3 tapes on the front of the cover, and you picked up the magazine, and there was bloody nothing in the magazine. It was just that they were just actually selling it based on the content of the tapes, and the actual editorial, I thought really, really kind of suffered.
Oh, it plummeted. I mean, I remember being really disheartened. The last kind of few issues of Amstrad Action, you got double tapes with them, and it was like Super Game Elite. You got Elite on the cover of a magazine, for God's sake, and. But the magazine itself was like 6 pages or something daft like that, and it was all just, you in public domain, and it's like, what's this? Yeah, it was just really sad,
One of my favourite cover games, cover tapes was what do you call it? Computer and video games. They gave away the soundtrack. It was the arcade soundtrack to 720 and Outrun, and I can remember me and my mate in my Mark II Escort. Driving along at, I was going to say at high speed, probably about 55 miles an hour, with the windows down, blasting out bloody whatever it is,
magical sound shower.
Magical sound shower. I thought I was the bee's knees with the sunglasses on. Absolutely fantastic, brilliant.
I used to love. There was a magazine. I don't know if you remember a magazine called Ace.
I do. That was good. That was good.
Aye, it was multi-format, and it used to cover new arcade games that were coming out. But you used to occasionally get tapes, and it was like that. It was sort of arcade soundtracks and stuff. It was pretty good.
Yeah. But I remember, what would you say was the most sort of impressive magazine? I mean, not what your favourite one was. The one that jumps out to me, it was a very, very short-lived magazine. It was called Maximum. It came out just, it was kind of just after the 32-bit, like the PlayStation, the Saturn. And the quality of it was fantastic. Really super high res color pictures. And I remember was it Super Play, which was for the NES. NES, the Super SNES. It was fantastic. It was all the manga, but it was done to such a high degree. Whereas when you looked at like computer, like especially when you actually, I've still got a bundle of old Crash mags upstairs, and you actually look at them, they were actually very amateurish put together, but it was the content that made them rather than in fact, you probably find it hard to believe, but most of the screenshots were black and white. You tend to think back in sort of like rose-coloured spectacles, you think they were all in colour, but a lot of them were actually in black and white.
And the mad thing is it wasn't a direct screen capture. They used to have to put a box over the telly and sit with a towel over their head and take a photo with a camera.
Is that how they took I wondered how they took the pictures on the magazines back then.
They had a wee 14-inch portable, and they would put literally a box that was painted black on the inside, like a cardboard box, put that over the monitor, and then put a towel over it, put a towel over their head, like a old 1850s photographer, and take the photo with an SLR, a proper film camera.
Mental.
Yeah, I mean, talking about, I was a fanboy Zap 64, almost to any of the people that have maybe never come along to our club. One of our members is Gary Liddon, who is one of the original Zap reviewers. Now, it was a bit of a WTF moment for me when I first met Gary. This was a guy that I wasn't a fan of his, but this was a guy that I used to kind of read about and read reviews, and then suddenly I got to know the guy, and then there he was coming along. In fact, it was quite a good moment. I think was it last year at one of club nights. I got Gary to play Delta, which he bloody wrote. You know what I mean?
Superb.
And he was particularly shite at it, if I remember rightly. But it's absolutely mental, absolutely mental. But anyway, I'm changing the subject there. But one last thing, guys, do you think there is there a place for computer magazines in particular? Well, is there a place for computer magazines nowadays with things like
I think
internet?
recently it's been tablet-based magazines that I've been reading. So is it Retro Gamer?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been downloading that and reading that on iPad. And I've also got all the back copies of Crash and Zap that acquired off of Alan. So I've been converting them to PDF file and looking at them on the iPad.
So what you're really doing is looking at almost like old magazines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
As well as aye. So the Retro Gamer comes out when it's got reviews of games, old games and new games for a lot of the old computers. So I get that to read reviews on some of the stuff you can get.
What do you think about game? I mean, like, just I know we're sort of mainly talking about retro stuff, but would you say is there still a place for a PlayStation 4 magazine? What do you think yourself, Dave?
I'm amazed that they're still going, to be honest, because when you see them, it's just it's almost just an advert. The whole magazine is an advert, and you've got a cover disc with demos of Lego the Movie 6 or Lego Superhero something, and it's just drivel, a couple of avatar pictures and that, and it's almost like back to the days of getting shit on a cover tape, because it's just there's nothing in the magazine. So I'm really surprised that they're still printing them, to be honest.
And it's the price of them. It's the price of them, Dave. Now
they're like £6 and £7.
Aye.
So with everything, especially those machines, the PS4, the Xbox One, and all that kind of stuff, they're online. They're selling the whole PlayStation network and digital downloads and that. So I think that whole generation are going to be used to having digital stuff. So it'll be like that, digital editions. I mean, I still get Retro Gamer magazine. I subscribed to that 10 years ago or something daft like that, and I've got an almost complete collection, and I still get it every month, the paper copy. And they say for an extra £1 you can get the digital version. It's like, well, I've got the paper one. What do you like?
I was a subscriber to Retro Gamer from day one, so I've got the complete collection. Nice. But to be perfectly honest with you, I'm actually getting bored of it. I find there's less and less content I'm actually reading. I don't know, maybe it's covered the stuff that I want to read about, but I kind of get to feel like I want them to say this is the last ever issue, and I can go, yay, I've got the full collection, and I can bang it on eBay for some silly money. But
I mean, I still quite like it. I tend to flick through it and look at the pictures and then go back and read articles I'm interested in. But I used to like seeing, they dropped an article years ago. They used to have a thing called Collector's Corner.
That's right, I remember that, yeah.
Aye, and I used to love that. I like seeing other people's collections and room tours and stuff like that. But,
I actually prefer that before. I mean, I know that when it first came out, there was about 10. I think there's maybe about 12 issues came out, and then it kind of stopped and it was taken over with a kind of different publisher. I personally preferred the original. It was more a hark back to the zaps and the crashes and antics of its day kind of thing. It felt more kind of homemade, which I quite liked.
Aye, I mean it's one of these things, it's the only retro magazine still going. I know that the Edge magazine has a wee bit of retro stuff in it, but I suppose I mean, I'm pals with Darren Lee Jones on Facebook, the guy that edits.
Editor,
and I feel sorry for the guy sometimes, because he takes £1 and there's guys, rip the magazine apart, and then there's guys that love it, and I suppose it is hard to please everyone, but I posted on one of the comments, at the end of the day, it's the only retro mag still out there. So if you don't like it, don't buy it. But you've got to keep supporting it, and otherwise it will just disappear, and you'll be able to sell your complete collection on eBay for stupid money.
I was absolutely gutted because they brought out, was it for the 100th anniversary or something? They gave away an issue one. Now, I've got
Yes.
the original issue one, which was, I mean, about, I don't know, a year after it first came out, it was selling for like £100, and I was like, oh, I could sell it. And I thought, no, I'll just hang on to it. Yeah, but I mean, I think the second the redo, what you call it, the reproduced issue one, I think it actually tells you that it's not the original one, sort of thing. So
It
my
does say
cost
the
of
issue.
copy, it's still worth a lot of money, hopefully.
Plus, I'm imagining you would have the disc with it as well. They didn't do the
Yeah,
disc.
I've got the discs up in the loft actually.
Aye.
But yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, Dave, about the. I mean, one of my mates gave me a big bundle of PlayStation 3 magazines, and I tend to do all my reading in the bath. So there's nothing you can't beat either lying in your bed or I've seen you post on Facebook going to my bed now to read Retro Gamer. You can't beat relaxing reading a magazine. You can't beat that. But I've found when you pick up like the modern magazines. I'm like, whatever. Oh, Killzone 5. Oh, flick.
Aye.
Oh, blah, blah, blah. Tomb Raider review. Flick. Oh, that's at the end of the magazine. That's shite. And it just goes in the recycle bucket. You know what I mean? But whether the modern games don't review as well as like reviewing Jetpack, I don't know.
Well, I mean, most of the modern magazines could say Call of Duty 55. Please see Call of Duty 1 with fancy graphics. That's pretty much,
Exactly.
FIFA 96. Well, Christ, 96. That's retro. But FIFA 2015. Just go and look at FIFA 2011 and put in new players. It's trouble. There's nothing new for them to review. So I suppose they've said it all before.
No, I know. So, hey, listen, guys, I think we've kind of ran on a wee bit. I hope we haven't bored anybody. I think we should wrap this up. So, thanks for coming along, guys, and thanks for listening, people.
Thank you. See you all later.
Yep, and I hope you all tune in to. We'll have another podcast in a fortnight's time, and this should hopefully be available on Wednesday. Well, when you hear me talking, it's obviously available. So, take care, guys. Okay,
see you later.
bye for now.
Ta.
Bye.
Cheers.